your attention, please.
Good morning. This is Kathy with Getting Chatty with Kathy, and it's a beautiful day here in the Queen City. The sky's blue. The weather isn't too hot, and I am just so happy to have this wonderful guest with me. So to give you guys a backstory, I've known Claudia for well over 10, 15 years now. I met her through her sister that I worked with, and I've had the joy to have lots of dinners with her, enjoying Mexican food, and just having really wonderful conversations. And during that period of time that I really got to see you, you went through a transition with your career, and I really admired that about you. And so when I started Getting Chatty with Kathy, I was thinking of people that did things that are inspirational. And what you did to me was so inspirational. So you were on my to-do list right off the hop to have you on the show. So everybody, I'm introducing to you Claudia Castellanos. I might be saying your last name a little wrong. I hope I didn't roll it off wrong. And she started a business called Connect World Translation, which is a service here in Regina that I myself have used in other jobs that I've worked throughout the city. And that started through you following your passion. And if you wanted to just introduce yourself and kind of give us your thought process of getting into translation services.
Well, Kathy, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to your show, and congratulations on being a radio show and opening your own company. That is wonderful. It takes a lot of work and energy, and I'm sure you're going to do yours. You're already doing excellent. I can see that. I, after many years of teaching at the University of Regina, I was teaching Spanish language. As you know, it's a post-secondary language, post-secondary institution. I decided that it was time for a change for me, and it was a big change. I never owned a business before, but translation was part of my everyday life. Always inside the classroom, I used translation, and it was a work that I did on the side while I was teaching as well. In 2013, I decided to open my business, and it was the right time. It seemed like the right time to do it. Saskatchewan was growing fast. It was actually the second fastest growing population, had the fastest growing population, and there were no translation companies located here for people to have their
translated, to have their brochures done. 100%. And I remember I was working at the university as well, and we had a view book. And our view book was just like a little brochure document that would go to like a bunch of different countries for businesses to, or people rather, or agents to understand what the U of R was about. And we had been getting our view book translated by like, I don't even know. And I remember, I forget where we were, but you took the view book and you read it to me in Spanish, what it was saying. And then you said, Kathy, this doesn't make any sense. A person in Mexico is not going to know what the Rough Riders are. Do you remember that?
Well, I remember something about the writers, and I remember me telling you guys that it would be probably a good idea to not focus so much on the writers, because people
they don't know what it is.
On the other side of the world don't know the writers, but you can focus on something that is very meaningful, culturally meaningful for the reader. I mean, and that's the most important part of translation, is to understand your readers demographically as well, how old they are, who they are, the language they speak, do they live with their parents, are they independent people? I mean, all these things matter.
So it's not just the words.
It's just not the words. You don't translate literally. There are literal translations when you're talking about certified translations that are going to be sent to for immigration purposes.
Immigration stuff, yeah.
To lawyers. But for marketing purposes, it is very challenging.
Interesting. So here we are, 2013. You know that there's this like big market there where people could get stuff translated. Mm-hmm. You're teaching and it's not filling your cup anymore. So you're bringing on some jobs to translate. So then slowly, did you just give up the teaching, or how did you decide one day that you were like, this is for me?
See, the funny thing is that when I was teaching at the university, one of my dreams was actually teach a translation class. I saw my coworkers, I know the languages, were teaching that, and I always wanted to do that, but I didn't have the chance to do it. There was always in the back of my mind, I always thought Saskatchewan needed a translation company. Businesses were growing, the province was thriving.
Opportunities were there.
So it was a great opportunity for me to have a virgin business.
Totally.
Right?
So you open this business and you start translating. And how was that for you? Was it easy? Like, was it simple, or was it like challenging? Like, how did you experience? What was your experience like?
It is very exciting. Number one, it is difficult, especially when you want things at to be a certain way. And when we're talking about language, you have to be specific, you have to be accurate, and your clients are hoping that you're going to bring it up as well, right? So it was a different experience for me to have people with me translating, and me being a project manager. Before I taught a class and I had students, and obviously I was the owner of my class, but now I had to take responsibility for everybody else in the team.
So if they translated, and you can't check the work really because it's not a language you know.
Exactly, and that is very challenging. It is difficult, but it can be done. Sometimes I have to bring people to my office, people who speak the language, to actually edit or review the translation.
So it takes more than one person.
It is. You have a translator, and if you're not sure about, especially with difficult languages, right, you need to have somebody, an editor, comes to your office and tells you this has to be changed, this has to be changed. Or when clients speak that language, they know that there's something wrong. So you have to make changes and adjustments.
Right, and you want it to be right. You don't want the client to be telling you that, yes.
So you have to make sure they are happy with the work, right? And you don't want to lose clients.
Talk about trusting your team. It does take a team, I imagine, then to do it good.
When I opened the company, I had 6 languages, I remember, and I ended up after, I have been having the company for 10 years, and now we have 45 languages, and
Holy.
I have 2 Aboriginal languages. I have Inuktitut, and I have Plains Cree, which is...
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Especially here on Treaty 4 land. It's the land of the Cree?
It is. It's spoken in central Saskatchewan. It's spoken in Manitoba. It's spoken in Alberta. And I believe in northern Montana, which is the United States. Doesn't matter, but yeah. It is. And we have done projects where we actually have Plains Cree, but I have great people at the university helping me out with that.
How rewarding, too. I imagine some of the things that go across your desk give you insight into lots of different things going around the province. So tell us what kind of projects come across your table.
Okay, Kathy, the kind of projects that we do are for any kind of industry. You can be working with the mining industry, with the forestry industry, with agriculture, people trying to settle a tractor in Germany or Russia, and then you turn around and the next day you are translating a brochure into 13 languages about mental health for our newcomers and refugees to actually understand the concept and and have professional help.
That's a huge spectrum.
It is. You can be, one day I can be translating a food package, and the next day I can just be translating for a person who wants to bring a dog to Mexico, or bring their dog from Mexico to Canada.
So I have to ask. So what is what would be the benefit for somebody to come and have you do it versus me just Google Translate? Like, I know we talked about the meaning behind it. I imagine the quality is just garbage, in my opinion. And you got to be picky.
Okay, well, see, I have to be honest with you. Translation machine, it is much better right now, and anybody in this industry can tell you. Even Google Translate is much better, but there's no way that you can do a translation without the human touch. I see it when you try to translate something using Google. You can see that Google is a literal translation, so you have to really master the language so you can actually put pieces together and make that translation that Google gave you exceptional.
So meaningful and impactful to the topic.
Besides, Google doesn't know the grammar. Many times it doesn't know it, and then you have to just work on it.
So what about like something like ChatGPT? Are you familiar with it's like AI? So for instance, guys, out here in the blog writing world, I tried it out. I was like, let's check out what this is, because I listen to lots of like podcasts while I'm pressing my products for QC. And just the other day, I was listening about how, you can just add it to your computer, ask it a question, set the parameters, and boom, it'll be out. So here's what I did. I put in vagina water, does not taste good.
Okay.
Okay. And then I said, first person Kathy, include my business, da 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 da. So it wrote it out, and it was garbage, but it gave me kind of like a outline to work with. But here's the thing. I trusted what they wrote. Because, I was like, it pulled it all from the internet, right? It's got to be real, right?
Okay.
Well, somebody fact-checked me on it, because I said that we were in a drought. I thought we were in a drought. That seemed kind of logical to me, but we weren't. And so I have friends from the city who, actually are the people that input this data into, Environmental Canada crap. So I have to have my audience is on the pulse of the information, and I literally had to correct it and then put on there, because I want to be honest with people in my blog. And I said there was an error. I had to change this. We are not in a drought.
Absolutely.
And if I had been using a proper writer, they're gonna make sure that this information is correct. We can't take advantage or can't make the assumption, actually, that these things are correct.
You have to be factual.
I had eggs on my face. I couldn't believe it. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, you have to be factual. But yes, as I am saying, you can rely on computer translation for certain things, but then you have to really do addition.
So how do you market that to your customers so that they come? Instead of, are you, I know you have quality. I know that when I'm working with your business, everything comes out on time and it sounds wonderful. Because I know you, I would trust you with anything. And I've worked with you. But, how do you communicate that to the businesses around Regina to say, come to me, do not do this? Do you market that? Or?
Yes, I have been doing this for 10 years. Many places, many companies. I have worked with companies for 7
So it's
years,
built a relationship.
It's a built relationship, but also I did a lot of marketing, and that was at the very beginning, trying to teach people the difference between a quality translation or even a certified translation.
You had to educate the audience.
So it's been 10 years, but when you have new people coming as well, you have to also teach the same thing, right? So the ones that already know it, it's they don't really pass the information along, and then it is you're starting all over again. But this is an exercise that you do all the time.
Right. So really, with your own business, would your advice be never assume that you have your audience and continually market then?
Okay, I don't know. I didn't understand that.
So, if you were a new business and you were giving advice, because the audience is new and emerging still in Regina, you have to continually market.
Absolutely, all the time. Just
all
like
the time.
You are amazing at marketing.
I'm embarrassed about all of it.
I have seen you. You're really good at social media. Wow, I need
You're
some
nice.
classes. I need some classes. Yeah,
It's all self-taught, but what I find is it takes, a program on the computer for me to enter it in, because if you don't,
but you're savvy at it.
you'd be, yes. And otherwise you'd have to be sitting in front of your phone all day long.
And it's quite helpful. And what I see is that you're always, relentlessly, you have stuff. You're always putting stuff, and really, that's how it works. At the very beginning, is you're like boom, boom, boom all the time.
Don't forget about me. I am here. I am here.
It seems like actually sometimes when you see it, it's like, probably it is too much, but it is not too much, because that's what everybody does in business. I have tons of clients, and I see they are all the time.
Just on it.
Yes.
Well, from what we're hearing today, my advice would be, spread the word about each other then more. And we need to support each other in Regina. I've heard so many people being down about Regina, especially after this whole experience thing. And I've been communicating, this city is amazing. We have fabulous, smart people from all over the world here.
That is right. And we have, Kathy, we have great innovators in Saskatchewan. I mean, I work with companies that actually innovate technology just for agriculture. And it is such a pleasure to work with these people and just to make Saskatchewan much better.
But I think that we're so humble that we don't toot our own horns. You know what I mean? We are not the type of people that are we do this. Saskatchewan's wonderful. And honestly, I don't think if we don't start saying it, the vibe's down. So
nobody knows it, and nobody will. Nobody will say it if we don't say it.
So what you're doing is actually spreading the awesome word of Regina through these incredible businesses. So that's huge. It's pretty neat that you can compare, two different worlds, really. I feel like when I think about my time in Korea, when I lived in Seoul, it was such a different feeling living there. But when I came back here to Regina, I was like, but this has so much value too. There's such pros and cons between living in a small city and in a big city. And I think for your perspective, having, decades in Mexico, it must feel interesting to you as well.
It is very different. When I studied university in Mexico, I was in the second biggest city in Mexico. And then I came to live in Regina. And Regina is a very small place, but Regina is safe, is quiet, is beautiful, and does have amenities, right, during the summer and the winter. I have to say that what I miss the most is my family, my parents. But luckily my parents come mostly every Christmas to Regina to be with us. So
you get to see them and have some fun.
We do, and my parents don't mind the winter. I mean, it's quite cold. It is very cold for them, but still they love it because it's such a difference. We come from a very hot place in the south of Mexico.
I can imagine what it's like that time of year. It's probably super hot.
It is absolutely different. It's just crazy, the difference between the heat that we have at plus 43, 45, right now 47, I think we are in my hometown. And
how do they not have forest fires when it's that hot?
We are very lucky. We are very lucky because it is extremely, extremely hot right now. It is very dangerous. People cannot be out on the streets, of course, especially elderly people, right? And it's
a different world.
Yeah, it is a total different world.
Air conditioning, everything.
It's a must right now.
I imagine.
Right.
So as a international woman, I know, like to travel. I love seeing your photos when you're going all over the world. No, I really do. It's inspirational. I love traveling as well, and I always come back here, and I'm happy to be in Regina. But when I do go, there's so much that you can enjoy and take back with you and remember and appreciate. Tell me about some of your travels.
See, the beauty of living in a small city, right, in a small province, is that you go everywhere in the world and you get to see many things, and the noise of the city and the music and the museums. and every single building that is beautiful. And then you come back here to the quiet again, and it's the perfect world, right?
It's a good combination. I imagine lots of people that live in big, busy cities don't even take the time to go and do those things that, when you're there for a couple of weeks, you embrace, you take in.
Exactly.
You really become like more into it than the standard
And
resident.
I see many people, for example, if you live in Toronto, of course, you want to go to a warm place, right? You want to go to Mexico, you want to go to Tulum, you want to go to a small place. But if you're here in Regina, you definitely want to go to a bigger city, have the experience for a week, and then come back to your quiet life again. And just...
I agree. Eat like the food of the land, and I really, really travel through my tummy. Whenever I think about the countries that I've been in, I'm like, okay, that was my favorite meal was this one, and it takes you back. And I'll go as far as to like actually cook the things that I've tried.
Oh, that is amazing
to make me remember my trip. I remember
that is great.
I remember.
Did you just memorize what it is in the dish, or do you actually get the recipe?
Well, it depends. Like, for instance, Mexican food, I will get the recipe because it's easy. I know some Mexican people, they'll tell me how to make it. But like when I, for instance, was in France, and I remember we got off a train in the middle of like wine region, and we were so darn hungry, we didn't care where we were, and we walked up to this small little pub restaurant, and all of a sudden in front of me, I have the best meal of my life. Totally unexpected, in a pub in the middle of France. And I remember taking so many pictures of it and being like, you guys, we got to remember all of like what is combined with this and that. And we tried to like remake it, but it takes some time.
Well, that is
I haven't
amazing.
mastered my French cooking yet. I need a little more.
French cuisine, I would say that it would be very, very difficult, but it's quite doable, and that is great that you actually come back and make
Tried it. I whipped out some Julia Child, like, cookbook for real. And have you ever tried to read Julia Child before?
I have not.
It's terrible. They need to translate. It's like Shakespeare for cooks. So I need you to translate it because it's seriously like
Send
Shakespeare.
it to us.
It's like, could you just tell me how many cups of sugar and like how long do I have to brown it in the pot? Because like honestly, it was like very difficult to follow along, and it really did not turn out the way I wanted it. So translation is definitely key in a lot of our like culture now and how we communicate with people. Do you know any history about like translation? Like where did it stem from? Is there like, old scrolls from like...
Translation has existed for centuries, right? We have like biblical books already translated into many languages at that time. Martin Luther King, I remember, translated it into German, right, from Hebrew.
Right.
So we're talking about translation is all. And I mean, communication is essential. So we definitely have to have translation in our lives and to bring people together, people who have cultural and social differences have to come together and work as a community. And, this breaks communication breaches that are essential, important.
Well, words do matter. And like a lot of us don't take the weight of the words that we say so seriously until you're in a situation where you say it in the wrong country and you're saying, the wrong thing, or because different words have different weights in different places. And I can definitely say I would rather have somebody translating a words and understanding that cultural process of the words.
Absolutely. I think translation is important because it's a language. And that's what we all do. We talk.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how.
And we communicate through whatever.
We communicate through, it could be sign language, it could be spoken language, it could be written language, but it's language.
Hieroglyphs. Am I saying that right? In Egypt, the images that they put on the walls that people can now read.
How do you say that
I can't even say it.
Hieroglyphicos, that's in Spanish. Hieroglyphs. It must be hieroglyphs.
Right. It must be Latin or something from
hieroglyphs.
Yeah.
Well, those kind of words come either from Latin or Greek. So, but I couldn't know for sure.
And then in Mexico, I remember going to lots of ruins that were similar to with the hieroglyphs, but they're in Mexico and Tulum and stuff. It's very interesting, the culture of that stuff. But I don't know if they have any words written there.
That would be in Mayan language, right?
Mayan.
Yeah.
And that's how old? Thousands of years, I imagine.
Absolutely. And, well, that's great that you went to Tulum. How do you